Michelle Visage. I say we because
we are collective.
We are collective, and we have a very special show. Today, we've got one of my children.
Yes!
I don't know how many, all my children.
You have a lot of children.
I feel like Agnes Nixon.
Yes. Your womb has been used and abused.
Used up. And I have a feeling I'm going to have more children.
You are. Multiple births.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're all my favorite children. Today, we have Jinkx Monsoon is
Yay!
here.
Hi.
And I know that she won season 5 because I knew that you were going to get on my case if I forgot.
What season it was?
Yeah.
We would have.
I can't, because I can't remember.
I can't remember anything past last week.
So. And you know what? And you're the better for it. Blessed are those who, this is a Nietzsche thing, I can't remember. Blessed are those who forget our blunders, who, do you know this? You
and
would
let
know
no man
this.
put us
Nietzsche.
under.
Yeah.
Is that a designer? No, just kidding.
That would be hot.
Do you think of yourself as like a brood mother now? Like
what is a brood mother?
Well, kind of like an ant colony, the queen who.
Oh
just
yes,
sits
I do.
There
A herd
and
mother.
reproduces.
I do. I've always thought of myself as that way. Do you feel like one of my children?
I absolutely feel like one of your children.
Yeah.
Like an adopted. I don't know, a late in life adoption.
You adopted Jinkx when she was older.
Yes.
Well,
that's
we
right.
definitely, I mean, without even talking about it, we definitely do act like a sisterhood.
Yeah.
And I mean, like some of the relationships I've developed because of Drag Race are just as important and just as like meaningful to me as people I've known for like 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like I've only known Alaska since season 5, but we're extremely close. And I count on that relationship.
Yeah.
I think it's something I call Drag Race is a little bit like our nom. Like it bonds us together in a way that only we can understand.
Well, you and Alaska were in season 5 together. You won the crown. Alaska won the crown later, but Alaska wasn't too happy when you won the crown.
Did word get around?
It was quite a public display.
It was, Alaska and I, it was funny because from the beginning, when Alaska and I were realizing we were going to be kind of neck and neck towards the end, she was very honest with me, and she said, I'm a very sore loser, and I really wanted this, but I'm feeling like you're going to win. So I want you to know every time I throw a temper tantrum, it's just me working through it and it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
And one night, the night that I was crowned, she threw a temper tantrum that's the only word for it. It was like
On
a
the
2-year-old
stage.
like stomping around.
Yeah.
And before the stage.
It's exactly what happened.
And her mom was chasing after her saying like,
Listen,
calm down, Alaska, calm down.
I was there. They were both annihilated, her and her mother. And the best part was each girl, I was hosting and it was in New York, each girl was to do one number, right? And then they, after the crowning, they all came on, they did a number. Alaska, then she does her number. And I was like, okay, that's it. To the DJ who happened to be Mimi on first. So then Alaska turns around and like a monster came out. And she was like, push, play. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mimi's like,
and then does Don't Cry Out Loud.
Yeah, flops
which
herself
was so perfect.
on the ground after singing Don't Cry Out in her hefty bags. And she's crying and flailing and angry. And then her mother, who had some to drink, comes on stage and is trying to pull her off by her feet. And she's
got her
grabbing
nails digging
onto
into
the
the
stage.
But it was comedy, though,
It
right?
was absolutely. I mean, it was comedy. There was truth in it, but it was comedy.
Yes.
It was a wonderful spectacle.
Yeah.
And it actually was almost impossible for me to top that. Here I am getting crowned.
You're like, what the
I
hell?
don't know how do
am
I
gonna
top
do?
that.
And she was lip syncing the song?
No, she
No.
sang it
She
live.
Sang it live.
And it's one of her favorite songs to sing, and it was very poignant for the situation, too.
So she had it prepared just in case.
And well, I think the
Yes.
whole thing was prepared because she told me earlier in the day to be ready for a temper tantrum and that it wasn't going to be about me. And before we even made it to the stage, she's doing circles in the out hotel courtyard. Literally, there's just a flock of people following her around in a circle, trying to calm her down, trying to keep the situation under wraps. And finally, she goes, someone open my hotel room. Why isn't my door open? I need to get the hell out of here. And unfortunately, I'm standing right next to her door. And I'm like, oh God, I'm like right in the warpath. And she goes past me as her assistant opens her door. And the last thing she does before she goes into her room is turn to me winks and sticks her tongue out, you know, like an emoji. And it was like her moment of saying, like, don't worry, this isn't about you.
Where was Roxy during all this?
Roxy was just sitting politely, just sitting there with her hands folded with a smile on her face. She had a great time that night.
Right, because Roxy Andrews was the third girl of that thing. Now, you mentioned sort of the monster coming out. When people become famous, it's like being on drugs or alcohol. It's sometimes people are mean drunks. Sometimes most people are fun drunks. What kind of a fame drunk are you, or did you become?
Well, I always think back to our Tic Tac lunch when you warned me quite bluntly that there's a dark side to all of this. And I definitely have tiptoed into the dark side. You know, I've had my moments of being totally selfish. I've had my moments of like being like, poor me, no one knows how hard it is to be famous, you know? No one knows what it's like to be so well-loved, you know? But I kind of had to pull myself back into the light and kind of realize at the end of the day, I'm so lucky that I get to do this and that this is my job rather than a multitude of things I could have been doing instead. But I think the kind of famous person I am is one that is way too obsessed with, I'm like a Joan Crawford. I love to present like I'm Betty Davis, but I'm more like Joan Crawford because there's a lot of self-criticism and there's a lot of like, I have to present this image of this like perfect idea of what people want me to be. But I'm trying to just kind of sit back and enjoy the ride more these days and not like worry so much about like, you know, camera left, you smile at this point, you know, shake all the hands in a specific way, you know. I mean, Michelle tours with me and we're both hypercritical Virgos. Yeah. So we kind of just sit there and go back and forth rationalizing.
Yeah, but you've grown a lot since I remember. Let's go beyond the first day where I asked Ru if you were wearing a prosthetic nose because I truly thought you were like, it was the way you had painted your face. And Ru was explaining that to me. That wasn't even meant to be shady. That was really an honest thing. And how you listened. I think you're the shining example of listening to criticism and putting it into play, not second guessing it, not even doubting it, just doing what we asked for. And obviously the outcome was amazing. But seeing the journey was probably the most rewarding thing. And even to where you are today and the struggles that you've gone through to where you are today, but still, you're still so loved and you're still at the top of your game and you're still creating more and more.
Well, I mean, for me, it's really easy to take criticism about Jinkx because, I mean, I learned in acting school that the work has to be the work and you have to separate the work from your ego and you have to be able to take the critiques and you have to be able to like, to listen to people like kind of dog on your work so that you can make it better. For me, the real pain came out of like Drag Race. You don't just meet Jinkx, you also meet Jarek. Now, Jarek has always been, you know, private, and I've always been able to keep a certain air of anonymity because I was the kind of queen who got into drag at home, stayed in drag all night long, and didn't get out of drag until I got back home. So no one ever saw Jarek. It was either Jinkx or it was Jarek, but the two never met. Drag Race blended the two together. And I feel like I wasn't prepared for people to start criticizing the artist behind the character. Like I was fully ready for the criticism of the character. But when people started criticizing the artist, that's when it hit me a little harder. But now I have to just think of like, Jarek is also a character now. I mean, now there's private Jarek and now there's public Jarek. Right. So I kind of had to just realize, you know, like, the version of me they met on TV and the version of me they see now, whether I'm in drag or not in drag, that's also a presentation and that's also a character. So if people are going to come for Jarek, I have to also think about it like that's just part of the work. And I have to be able to take the criticism.
Did you have to deal with that? The Ru in and out of drag?
You know what? I've always thought of it all as drag. I thought even me out of drag, I think of that being in drag at the same time. So, and people have always criticized me, always. So I was always used to it. But it's different on a reality show, especially because it's so fast. Now, during the process of doing this show, Jinkx, at what point did you think to yourself, you know, I may just win this thing?
It wasn't because I really wanted to keep my head in the game, and I really wanted to think about each challenge individually rather than trying to project ahead to the end. But it wasn't until it was our top 5 and we had to do the makeover challenge with our veterans.
Uh-huh.
And something about Dave telling me that I had to win it for him, that was the first time where I was like, you know what? There's no reason why I can't win this thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was kind of like I went into it thinking like, if I make it to top 5, that's going to be so lucky for me and I'm going to be so happy and grateful. Then I made it to top 5 and then I was like, well, now what? I guess win. And that was really my mentality about it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the next episode was my big downfall, the candy ball.
But that was the Mambo lip sync with
absolutely.
Detox, wasn't it?
And that was my chance to show Roxy, who thought, how can you be a drag queen if you can't lip sync?
Right, right.
Well, we know how that went, don't we, Jake?
And Dave, the makeover, that was the guy who killed Judy Garland.
Yes.
The guy who killed Judy Garland. He has gone on to do some amazing things. I mean, first of all, he heckled Ben de la Creme in season 6.
In the comedy challenge.
And I remember when that episode aired, Ben texts me and goes, wait until you see the episode tonight. For whatever reason, your veteran heckled me the whole time. Then he went on to go, he was on Wheel of Fortune.
What?
Yeah, he was on Wheel of Fortune.
The real show, not our version of it.
Show.
Yes.
Yeah, one of the producers from Drag Race, Stephen Korf, texts me one night and says, did you see your vet on Wheel of Fortune?
Oh.
And he was the big time loser that night, but he's getting out there and he's living his life, and
God
that's what's so
That's
amazing.
crazy. Now, you mentioned Ben de la Creme, another queen who from Seattle who came after you. And then it was Robbie Turner, who also came from Seattle, who was on our show.
Who, by the way, sidebar, has upped her game. I don't know what.
I saw a picture.
Isn't it like overnight all
like
of a sudden?
overnight, it was still Krusty Robbie, who I love. And then the next day it was like, who the fuck is that?
Yes.
And where the fuck has she been hiding?
I know. I saw a picture
Did you
recently.
see that shit?
Yes, I did.
I was like, wait a minute.
You know, I mean, like, because unfortunately, Robbie and I haven't gotten to hang out much. We both have really conflicting schedules, so we don't see each other a lot.
But
these
you were
days.
all friends.
We were all, with the 3 of us were, it was actually, there were 4 queens in Seattle, the 3 of us and a queen named Mama Tits. And we called ourselves the Quadrifecta because we were all kind of dominating different scenes in the Seattle drag scene. And we always had each other's backs. And I think what happened is, because I remember seeing a picture where some new baby drag queen, Twinkie boy who's great at makeup, did Robbie's makeup for her that night. And sometimes that's all it takes.
Yeah.
Is one person doing your face and you're like, oh, wait a second.
Yeah.
I could have been looking like this the whole time.
Yeah.
Because that's definitely happened for me a few times.
Right.
Now, of course, I know Mama Tits. Mama Tits was the one, there was a viral video of her going up to a protester.
Yeah. During Gay Pride.
Yes.
Yeah. She's
amazing.
She's a huge pillar of our community. That sounds like a fun, no, Mama's just she's very outspoken. She's had a hell of a life. She's lived a lot of a life, and she used to be a Sister of Perpetual Indulgence. Sister Stella Standing was her name. And then she started doing Mama Tits / Busty McGee. She's had a lot of names.
I love all those names.
I love that.
You know, funny story, which actually will be addressed in my documentary that plays on Logo on the
Drag
13th.
Becomes Him?
Yeah, April 13th, Drag Becomes Him.
Okay.
Drag becomes what?
Drag Becomes Him.
Drag Becomes Him.
Yeah.
This is a documentary that will be showing on Logo.
Yeah,
Okay.
April 13th at 8 p.m.
Which will be way after this airs.
Yeah, this will air then, but I just want to get the name right.
Yes.
Okie dokie. Well, Mama Tits was working at a celebrity impersonation show in Seattle, and she was the host. And they had me guest star one night. And Mama Tits is telling the show director, just up and down, you have to hire Jinkx. You have to make her part of our show. What she didn't know is that they wanted to make me the new host. So Mama Tits
Oh.
pushed for me
Oh my goodness.
to take over her job without
knowing.
it.
Yeah.
But then she went on to just become in charge of her own career and has done amazing
So
things
did you
since.
take the job away from her?
Well, it was kind of like when I found out they wanted to hire me as the host, she, of course, you know, like a very gracious older drag queen to a younger drag queen, sat me down and said, I don't blame you. I want you to take it. It's a great opportunity for you. Here's what to watch out for.
Wow.
That's very kind.
And
It is.
It is.
It's very kind.
New
Now
York,
we've got Jinkx Monsoon here. Lots of stories. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Michelle Visage, girl, Squarespace is doing it.
Preach.
They are taking it to the next level. If you want a website, you got to go to Squarespace, girl.
And you gotta make it easy. Why are y'all doing backflips?
You know what I'm saying?
You don't gotta be doing a floor routine.
It's the 21st century, girl.
Yes, it's so easy,
You
y'all.
have got to go to squarespace.com and do that /Ru,
Our
get that offer code.
Yes.
Because everybody needs a website.
You can make a gorgeous website in minutes using their beautiful templates. They have them all laid out for you, and they're simplistic.
Okay.
Drag and drop platform, which we love.
I'll buy a minimalistic too.
And for me, minimalistic is better for a website.
I think so too, because you know what? It makes it easy to read. You don't get all
to
this
navigate.
mishigas,
Yes.
you know, all this craziness. That's just my personal taste. But whatever your taste is, you could do whatever you want because you on Squarespace.
You can fancy her up.
You can do whatever you
Oh, you
want.
can fancy her
These
down.
are not slave days. You don't
No.
have to do what other people say you need to be doing.
This is not Amistad.
This is not Amistad.
No.
This is Squarespace, girl. Go to Squarespace and they will hook you up.
10% off of the plan with that offer code RU. That's squarespace.com. Offer code RU.
Michelle, you know, I've been staying in a hotel while we film, and I don't have my squatty potty with me.
You didn't bring it with you?
I didn't. I have it at the house, and I'm. You know what? It's just not the same without it.
Do you have a 7-inch or do you have a 9-inch?
Wait, I thought you'd never ask. Well, I've never measured. I have these long legs.
That's what I mean. Like, I think a 9-inch would work.
Well, I never turn one down. I'll tell you that
Either,
much.
normally, but it's too big for me.
Do you? It's too big for you,
It's too
really?
big for me because like my knees go up
Yeah.
way too high. Because even though my legs are long for my body, I'm still 5'4".
Right.
So I need the 7-inch. It's
Right.
perfect fit.
Do you bring yours here to the studio?
I don't bring mine here to the
Do
studio.
you travel with yours?
I do travel with it normally. I told
Uh-huh.
you about my friend Anna who dragged it through Heathrow Airport
Oh
and
my-
used it in the bathroom. You guys, modern toilets are terrible for our colon. Squatty Potty offers the ultimate and complete elimination.
I heard that.
We do a lot of eliminating
We
places.
certainly do.
But this is really the important place to do it. The science is simple. Squatting at the toilet unkinks the colon, allowing your body to shed those unwanted waste things that you got to get out of your body.
Yeah.
Squatty Potty offers multiple toilet stool designs. Why do they have to say stool?
I don't know.
But they are. I guess they're stools to put your feet on.
I guess it's a
You know what
stool.
Ruth, they're stools for your stool.
It's a stool for your stool.
I just got it.
There you
Okay.
go.
To make your porcelain throne fit for any king or queen. Hey.
Hey, queen.
Join the movement by visiting squattypotty.com/Ru and receive a free bottle of Fruity Booty.
You had me at fruity.
Fruity Booty on top of it. And that's with the purchase of $20 or more. Remember, a happy colon is a happy life. We love you, Squatty Potty.
We are back with Jinkx Monsoon. Do you still live in Seattle?
I do. I still live in the same apartment.
Really? Why?
I just I love
Not
it.
a read. Not a
I
read.
know, I just said
Yeah.
it funny.
I mean, I'm just really comfortable where I am, and I spend so much time on the road. It's kind of like I want to go back to somewhere that's familiar and
Sure.
super comfortable when I have like a couple weeks off, you know. It used to be me and Kenny, who's my best friend and tour manager, and then Major Scales, who's my music partner. Major just moved out and moved in with his boyfriend. So we live in the same apartment, but now we have
Well, now you have more
actual
space.
living space.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've got 2 walk-in closets that are pretty much full of drag.
Yeah. And is it inexpensive to live in Seattle?
It is. The prices are hiking now. Gentrification, especially in the area that I live in, is a real thing.
Is that the funky area where all the artists live?
Yeah,
that
it's
Capitol Hill?
Capitol Hill is the queer neighborhood, but the queers are now getting priced out of our neighborhood because
Oh, no.
the city is catering to the tech industry.
Sure.
So all the Bridge and Tunnel Tri-Cities people are now moving to Seattle to work their tech jobs and live in these high-rise condos, which have replaced the old historic buildings. Did
Sure.
you get
Your
my
belt?
burp on
Yes,
there?
sure.
Fantastic.
Good
That
job.
happens in all the cities. I don't understand why there isn't a consortium of young people who say, you know what, we've decided we're going to make Des Moines the next hotspot.
Yes.
Or go to some place where it's very cheap and then, or maybe sunny.
Yeah.
And create a scene.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, this has happened twice in Seattle that the gay neighborhood has migrated. It used to be in the downtown, kind of like the dirty, seedy part of downtown, and then they gentrified that. So then we moved to Capitol Hill. Then now they're gentrifying Capitol Hill, so now we're kind of shifting to First Hill. And soon we're going to be we'll probably just take over the International District.
But that's what
I
happens.
predict Laurel Hill will be the next
Yes,
hotspot.
yes.
Yeah.
I don't understand why I do understand why, but what happens is the gays come in, they clean up a really otherwise shitty neighborhood. They make it funky, they make it trendy, they make it hip, and then all of a sudden, I want to live there, Muffy, and me too, Chip.
But that's the natural order. I told you this story when I went to Greece last year, and I saw that nothing had changed. Nothing had changed. And that's why they're in the economic situation they're in, is because that, and I vowed, because it doesn't change, but I vowed at that moment that I will never complain about how New York changes over and flips over so much, because you realize that's a big mistake. You want things to move and change. You want to be able to, push.
I agree with that, but I feel like cleaning out an entire neighborhood of the people who founded it, I feel like it should be able to stay there and welcome the change.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be great. But it's also, I mean, like they move into the neighborhood because they like the funkiness of it. And then they systematically eradicate the funkiness.
Yeah, that's
like they replace it with trendy cupcake shops and microbreweries and stuff. And it's like, we already had those, but they were more authentic when we were doing it.
Right.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I remember in 95 when Giuliani became mayor, he inflicted, that's the wrong word, but he blanked all of these old cabaret laws that were always on the books, but nobody enforced them. And so, and he enforced them, so it changed the texture of New York nightlife, and it was pretty much over. So initially, us old dinosaurs wanted to fight and make way for the young kids. They are not going to have a chance to do what we had.
We wanted the Koch days back.
Exactly. Put me in a sling and put a drink in my mouth. Actually, it wouldn't be a drink, actually.
Something else, baby.
But, then you realize, what? The young people are really on their own. They really have to fight for it. I just had a conversation with a young kid a minute ago trying to convince her that what to look forward to, but it's like, there's no way for me to do that. She's got to learn on her own.
Yeah.
And and that's how you are able to own it.
Yeah.
You can't appreciate something unless it goes away.
No, because we were talking about that. Somebody giving you advice or saying, telling somebody who's very worldly and very authentic words coming because you lived it. But if you were to tell me that at 15, 16 years old, would you be able to hear it?
Right.
Yeah, because you have to want to be filled with knowledge.
Right.
You have to want to
and
be
at 15, there's only a few things I could think of getting filled with.
Yeah. Jinkx Monsoon, if someone were going into RuPaul's Drag Race, knowing what you know about the process, what would you tell them? How would you advise them of what to look out for, how to navigate your feelings? You had a very famous line and philosophy is water off a duck's back.
Dunk's
A dunk's back.
A dunk back.
And it both work. Both are applicable, and it's very wise. What would you tell someone who's going into the show?
Well, I mean, so the two things I would say, like lots of kids come to me nowadays. Lots of kids say, "Will you be my drag mom?" Which I don't even think they know what that means nowadays. Because how am I going to be your drag mom when you live in Des Moines or Minneapolis?
Des Moines getting a lot of love.
So I say YouTube, YouTube's great. There's a tutorial for everything nowadays. And there's a lot of queens who love sharing their knowledge and stuff, and that's how they're making their name in the drag
But you have
scene.
to know what question to ask.
Well, you can literally just type it in, how do I make cleavage? How do I paint on my cleavage? How do I contour my nose? And there's a video for everything, and Misty Eyes has made most of them. And
from Florida.
I know Misty Eyes, yes.
Yeah. But then what I would also say is you get a lot of queens these days who have raised themselves on the internet and have created their drag through the internet and haven't had a lot of true life drag experience. Now,
which is a problem.
I mean, it's all relative, but I really think you benefit from kind of crawling through the sludge on your hands and knees for a while.
Yep.
Because the drag scene, whatever locale you are in, the drag scene is always cutthroat. There's always more drag queens than there are jobs for drag queens.
Yeah.
And to actually get paid and like make a decent earning doing drag is very difficult. So I started at age 15. I used to lie about my age to get into bars so that I could perform in the shows. I'd make like $10 in tips. Maybe I'd get paid $2.50 per song I did that night, depending on if I was on cast or not, you know. So I've been, I'm 29 now. I've been doing drag for 14 years. And for a good like 8 years of it, it was just horrible. I mean, I never gave up because I loved it so much. But you've got all the other competition. You've got drag queens just being flat out horrible bitches to you because maybe they're threatened, maybe they think they're better than you. But all of that prepared me for Drag Race. I don't think I would have had a mental breakdown if I didn't already know how to work with other drag queens, how to let it roll off my back, how to snap back when I need to. You know, the only thing is they edited out a lot of my fighting back on Drag Race. You know, there's
we
always
do
some way
only
to
have
play.
47 minutes.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Why? Who were you fighting back with?
Well, I never let Coco get away with anything because everyone thinks it was all about me and Roxy, but sometimes it was really about me and Coco.
You've never been one to hold your tongue, though.
I
Jinkx.
haven't, but sometimes watching the episodes, sometimes it looks like I kind of just take it. I cried once, and they cut it up into multiple tiny segments of me crying, so it looks like I cry every episode.
Well, that's smart editing, if you ask me. But I will say this, going back to what you were saying about the YouTube younger baby drag queens that don't have the experience, is that does, in the real world, I mean, it's beautiful. They're beautiful to look at, you know? And we talk about how these new kids, that's how they learn about drag, watching Drag Race and watching YouTube. But at the end of the day, when it comes to them, and Ru goes through those audition videos through with a lice comb.
Yeah.
So when they're up there, those are the best of the best. But at the end of the day, they're still presenting an audition tape that they want you, Ru, to see. So we don't know what's going to happen when the shit gets real on that main stage.
Well,
And then you see that you haven't had that experience to go through all that to get you to a win in that moment.
yes.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I do. And you know,
It's the grit.
people have said that. I remember there was a quote from Samuel L. Jackson about rappers who go into acting, and that they don't have the background or the training to do that work. But it hasn't stopped the actors from doing it.
Right.
It's what the market will stand. And a lot of our girls, some of very successful girls, are YouTube girls.
Yes.
You know, who have now they perform because they've had those hard knocks now. But, you know, I don't know if there's just one way to do it. I do know that nobody gets out of this life alive.
Yeah.
And that life will, you know, I was going to say something really nasty.
Don't
That's
do
the
it.
first
Don't
thing
do
that came
it.
to my mind. But life will have its way with you.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Yes.
You know.
Well,
And there's nothing wrong. I just want to sidebar. There's nothing wrong
There's
with
nothing
that.
wrong with that.
But
Because
that
that's how it's
practical
evolving.
experience
Yes.
totally helps.
And I'm one of the people who actually, I love that drag is becoming for more people. I think we all benefit from having an open mind about gender. I think we all benefit if we like take that chance and like put ourselves in the other person's skin for a little while, you know? But the best example of someone going on with a ton of real life experience and then just dominating is Bianca Del Rio.
Oh, yeah.
She had like 60 years of experience before she goes on Drag Race, and you could not touch her.
Right.
You couldn't get under her skin.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything she wasn't prepared
But
for.
can I add a sidebar? If we did ever do an All Stars Just the Winners, I wouldn't just say, oh, Bianca's going to dominate, because you've got people that, like, I don't count you out for a hot minute.
Right.
And then you've got people like Raja against Violet, who are both major fashion looks. So I wouldn't ever, if we ever did that head-to-head winners.
Could you imagine?
It's for the blood, bitch.
Oh.
This is a fucking cage match to the death.
Absolutely.
Thunderdome.
Yes.
I mean, I'll be honest, I said many times, if they ever do a Winners All-Stars, there's no way I could do it. I couldn't put myself through
Yes, you could.
the competition aspect of it again. Then the first episode of All-Stars 2, I was like, get me back in there. Oh my God, they look like they're having so much fun. Oh, I can't wait to get back in there.
How would you fare with the girls eliminating each other? Because that was a twist for All Stars 2.
Yeah, I feel like, my strategy would just to be, let's be honest. I was in the top percentile for 8 weeks in a row when I did season 5. I would just try to do that again.
Yeah.
And the way that I did that the first time was really focusing on the challenges.
Yeah.
But would you take out your competition?
Right, because we thought that was what would happen.
That's what I would do. Wouldn't that be what you would do?
I mean...
Would you take out the strongest contender? Would you take out who the judges like the least, the way these girls played
I think it would just have to depend on what they said to me that day.
What the other queen said to you that
day.
But you all know each other. You guys are all friends. That's what made the stakes so much higher.
Yeah, but I
brilliant.
feel like, because there's probably 0 Drag Race girls that I don't get along with. Like maybe
0?
I've had my beef with some of them, but we all have to be able to work with each other. You never know when you're going to walk in that room and they're also booked for this event.
Sure.
That's a great
I have
attitude.
to hang out with them, you know. So even if you have beef or whatever, you have to let it go eventually, because we're all going to have to. There's the reunions.
Sure.
You're always going to run into someone without expecting it. But I have this feeling like, even though I'm close with all the other winners, we get along great, especially the reunions come around, we all kiki together, we all sit around just loving ourselves because we're the winners, you know? I know we would go into that room and everything would drop. All the friends, like me and Sharon, best friends, I know we would go into that room and immediately start going for each other.
100%. Those
she
two.
would.
Yeah.
I know that she would play mind games with me, and I know that I would just try to throw the beads and let her trip on her own 2 feet. You know?
She would go for everybody. That one, because she's smart.
Oh, I think
she's smart and she is cutthroat, and that's why she. There is no other queen like Sharon Needles.
Right.
I mean, there's tons of other spooky queens. There's tons of other shock queens, tons of other queens who will just say whatever comes to their mind. But none of them do it in that special balance and special ratio.
And then you've got Bob and Bianca, who are longtime friends, who are both comedy people.
From New York.
From New York. Interesting to see how that goes. And then you got Tyra and Bibi. You can't be counting any of these motherfuckers out.
It's true. I think you guys have sold me. I think that's what we have to do.
Did you like the pitch?
I love
Did
the
you
pitch.
like it?
It's done.
Good luck with those egos, by the way.
I know, right? We're going to take a quick
Fun
break.
ride.
We'll be back with more Jinkx Monsoon.
Girl, I'm staying in a hotel, so I miss my squatty potty.
I really can't believe
I gotta
that.
get another one.
Yeah, that wasn't on your list.
Oh my goodness, and I want that new clear one too.
Yeah, Squatty Potty Clear.
It's gorgeous.
And not only is it gorgeous, it goes with everything.
It goes with every toilet that you could possibly, and decor.
Every decor. But I will warn you about them.
What's that?
I constantly, when the lights are out, trip over it or kick it, forgetting.
Because you can't see it.
Yes, because it's perfect. It goes with everything. Just remind yourself that it's there.
Yeah, well, you know what? I can't forget, because it works so well for me. Every time, I actually look forward to going to the ladies' room, my own ladies' room, because of my squatty potty.
Yes.
That's why, I'm staying in a hotel right now because blah, 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 blah,
Yeah,
blah.
yeah.
But, I got to get me another one.
I have to tell you, Rue, every time somebody comes over and they're like, what's this? And they try it, they have to admit that they're pooping.
Yes.
But then they go, that was the best experience I've ever had.
The best poop experience you've ever had.
It changes your life. And anybody I turn on to it says the same thing. It's not a bunch of crap.
Yeah, well, and simple English, it unkinks your colon.
That's exactly
so
right.
that you can eliminate waste so easy.
And thoroughly.
And thoroughly. You've never eliminated waste until you have really gotten your booty into a squatty potty.
Correct. And the whole science is, back in the day when women used to give birth, they would do it standing up and just squat, and gravity pulls the baby down.
Wait a minute. Would they be on the bus?
They'd be in fields. baby comes out.
Yeah. I didn't even know I was pregnant.
But exactly.
Yeah.
A few times I didn't know I was pregnant. But with the squatty potty, it's the same idea. The same thing for eliminating. Back then, that's how they used to eliminate, standing up over a hole in the ground.
Okay.
Squatty potty is the same idea. You're squatting because what happens when your knees come up, you unkink the colon.
Yeah.
It's just physiology.
Sure, yeah. It's science, Michelle.
That's the word that I was looking for.
It's science, and Squatty Potty has figured it out. You got to go get you a Squatty Potty.
And they have all different colors, all different styles. They're talking about those clears. I have clears in every bathroom except for one.
I have the teak
and
one.
I have the teak wood downstairs.
Yeah.
It is amazing. They don't just help you squat, though. They sell these brilliant toilet sprays that smell wonderful and an incredible new bidet. The bidets are incredibly simple to set up. Oh, I sounded like a Betty Davis, didn't I?
You certainly did.
Oh my God, I did that good for the first time.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you. It takes 10 minutes of work to install the bidet in almost any toilet. Phenomenal. It costs $38 and you're clean forever. It's the better way for the environment, reduces waste, literally, and arguably a cleaner experience. Join the movement by visiting squattypotty.com/Ru. Get a free bottle of our favorite Fruity Booty toilet spray. By the way, just spray that in the toilet before you do your thing. You can't smell a thing.
That is outrageous.
It is.
I love it.
Whole bathroom will smell like tropical paradise.
Oh my goodness, it's like going on a vacation.
Exactly, right in your own bathroom. It's a free bottle of Fruity Booty toilet spray with the purchase of $20 or more. Remember, a happy colon is a happy life, and we love Squatty Potty.
We are back with Jinkx Monsoon, winner of season 5 RuPaul's Drag Race. Now, we tell all the girls, pay your taxes.
Oh, yeah.
You know, did you pay your taxes?
I absolutely did. I have a great tax firm in Seattle. They're a queer tax firm. I don't know if a tax firm can identify as queer, but there's
yes, they can. Actually, they put curly cues on the end of all of
their numbers.
Yes, exactly.
But a lot of queer people work there, and they work with a lot of queer artists, and they've done great by me throughout the years.
Are you good at handling money on your own? Because you make a lot of money on the road.
I went through a new money phase after I won, and I had to. I still have a healthy amount of my winnings. I put a lot of it away in savings, and it's still there. It's my rainy day. My rainy day nest egg.
Well, she shops at Rainbow Shops, so that helps.
Oh, okay. Well, there you have it.
I did go through it used to annoy my friends when I'd go through a store and I wouldn't look at the price tags once. I'd just grab anything I liked and just throw it in a basket.
I have never done that ever in my life.
Oh, it annoyed my friends so much because they're like, just because you don't have to look at the price tags doesn't mean you should.
They're right. They're right.
Now, I ask a lot of people here on the podcast about friends and how they navigate friendships after they've become super famous or make a lot of money. How have you been able to do that?
My core group of friends, I'm very, very close with my chosen family in Seattle. And the people who have always been my best friends are still my best friends. I'm still really close with them, but they also understand if I'm away. It's kind of like I see people when I'm in the same city as them. And I have to leave so often and I'll spend so much time away. But when I come back, it's kind of like we just pick up where we left off. And they also they know maybe I might not respond to text messages till 3 days later. But the core people who really care about me and who have really meant the most to me are still there.
Yeah.
And we may not see each other as much as we used to, but our friendships are just as strong. And then, of course, you kind of just realize when you have such limited time for friends and family, the auxiliary people, kind of like the acquaintances, those you kind of have to just let go of the guilt of not being able to maintain a strong friendship with everybody. And most people have been very, very understanding. There's only been a handful of people who are like, you think you're so great now.
You think you're something, don't you?
Yeah.
But I've also gotten to make so many new friends. I have friends in Amsterdam and London that I've it's funny because you'll meet people on the road and you realize right away, if I lived here and if I got to see you every day, you would just be my best friend because you just have that instant connection. But then it's the same thing with them. We kind of have to pick up where we left off every last time. And most of my friends just know not to ask, how was the last gig you did? Because it's just going to be the same story over and over and over. Every gig kind of bleeds together these days. You show up. They give you the star dressing room, which is a poured concrete closet that they've cleared out for you.
Just for you.
You can't go out and mingle in the bar, you'll get mobbed, so it's just best for you to sit in a closet by yourself.
Yeah.
Until
You
hit the
do know
stage.
some of these bars have incredible dressing rooms, like for their queens.
yeah.
Like I just did play in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I did play
It's
recently too.
like they have taken care of these girls so tremendously that they each have their own closet behind their dressing room. They can leave all their drag there. They're house
Pork
girls.
Chop said she designed that dressing room for the queens.
It's
Wow.
brilliant. And each girl has their own space. I'm doing the Nashville one this weekend, but it's brilliant.
Yeah, that's what confused me because I always think,
they have two.
I was about to say, isn't play in Nashville?
Yeah, there's two.
So
There's
it's Louisville.
Louisville and Nashville.
I
and
see.
all the house queens, brilliant house queens there, Leah and Akasha, and funny and smart. And
Is
they
it our Akasha?
not our Akasha, a trans Akasha who's so hot you would live for her. All this. And she is so everything. She gave me so much life. And they even have a boy go-go dancer in their group, this boy, Michael. It's just so forward thinking and the way that you would like to see drag progress.
Oh God, Pork Chop didn't design that one. She designed some other southern city. See what I mean? They're
all kind of
together.
but
Play is where Jade Jolie now works.
Yes, Jade Jolie is there.
Right.
And they're all, what I'm saying is like the way that we were back in those slab of concrete, if we even had a place to go, because when we worked for Suzanne, we didn't.
Right.
It was kind of like, oh, go back here, get your drink
Sure.
ticket. But now these girls are really valued. Some, not all, it's a very small percentage.
Sure.
But when they do, it makes my heart sing because they're being treated like the artists that they are.
I mean, Drag Race, like the best thing I think Drag Race has done, it has torn down the stigma around drag queens, even within the queer community, and has finally kind of given us the recognition and the respect that we deserve as the artists that we are. Because I can tell you, starting drag at 15, even just going out to the kiddie clubs, meeting other guys my own age, to be a drag queen is like having a scarlet letter. Like, back then it was like no guy would want to date you if they think that you secretly want to be a woman or if you dress as a woman.
Yeah, it's true.
It used to be like, well, I didn't come out so that I could date a guy who dresses as a woman, you know? And nowadays, that stigma has been torn down so much because drag is fucking cool. Like, people love it now. And even, like, your biggest butch tops do drag now.
You rang?
And it's just so amazing to see, like, people actually getting, we're celebrated in a way we never were before.
Who knew that Varla Jean Merman was like this?
Varla Jean Merman says, I sound like a woman, but I look like a refrigerator.
She is a full, stacked muscle bodybuilder.
Yeah.
Like,
she does
oh my God.
CrossFit.
Yeah,
and
you could tell.
Before every show, I hope she doesn't mind me. Well, you can see it. She does it just out in the open in Provincetown.
What does she do?
So she goes out, she barks for her show. This is something we all have to do in Provincetown, is stand on the corner and desperetely try to get people to come see our show.
And then Jinkx will tweet a picture of her flyer on the ground with a piece of pizza over it.
Remember when I won Drag Race?
And you have to bar. You really,
yes.
honestly,
Yeah.
Only
I
in
go out.
P-Town.
Is it because there are so many
There's
shows?
so many shows and there's so many parties.
Right.
So you're trying to convince someone, take an hour off of your drinking tonight to come see my show. And that's really hard to convince these people sometimes.
Yeah.
So what does Varla do? I threw you off.
Varla gets into full drag.
Yeah.
She's got her wig on. She goes and stands in the bushes, and her assistant will hand out her flyers, and then you walk a few feet away from him, and then she's in the bushes going, "Come to my show," just out of nowhere. And I think that's brilliant. But then she goes back to her dressing room, gets out of the body, gets out of the dress, keeps her wig on, full makeup, full wig, goes out and does pull-ups.
Oh my God.
Goes out and does deadlifts. And
But
she's
for
just in her
what?
tights. She's just in her tights and hip pads and her little Crocs or whatever. Because she
Crocs?
climbs
Really?
she climbs rope in her shows and stuff.
Oh.
And she does feats of physical strength in her shows, so she's got to warm up. So here is Varla Jean Merman, furry chest, big barrel-chested man, little polite red wig on,
That's
full makeup,
hilarious.
hip pads, doing deadlifts in the back of the theater.
Yeah.
It's so much fun.
But growing up, Rue, for us, we've talked about this before, but I remember really vividly hanging out on the piers, and it was, who hung out on the piers. It was all, Nelly kids and trans people. And what I noticed the most amongst those times working together back then was, and I was a hardcore observer, that the drag queens were an even more marginalized section of the gay community, made fun of and kind of like brushed aside.
Well, but only by, this is the thing, everybody has a status quo and there's a hierarchy of how you get what humans want in this world. And what humans want in this world is they want validation, they want sex, they want people to like them, right? That's everybody, okay?
Right,
so for gay kids who, for women, they want a husband, and men want a piece of ass, and there's this cycle, there's this hierarchy. So for gay people, already ostracized, if you were a straight looking or straight acting gay man who could fit into the stereotypical passable or if you could fit into the sexual fantasy of you're a twink or you're a top or you look a certain way, then you're the hierarchy, you're in the top of the hierarchy of gay culture. Now, for us drag queens, we knew we couldn't work that angle, so we thought, you know what, screw it. I'm gonna have fun. And there's a certain value that the community would have for that reason. But you don't think you were going to cross over into our sexual vernacular because there was no place for you. You know what I mean?
So it came down to sex, really.
It always comes down, because that's what humans want. We want to get laid, and women want to get laid, and they want security. Probably security first,
right? Because
So
I would look back and watch and go, well, why are you flippant, like saying, oh, she's just drag queen?
Yeah,
but just a drag queen.
Because the value system is what I just described.
Yeah.
The value system is based on that. Now, Jinkx is saying that has shifted a little bit because people have more respect for the art of drag.
Correct.
But honey, I'm telling you, if it could revert back to the caveman thing
1, 2, 3.
immediately, because it's in our DNA to focus on that currency
and trying to figure out where that fits in, and it doesn't fit in to the average person, even gay person's brain.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And there was also, I've also been told by, the intellectual types, like, all you drag queens do is talk about coke and dicks and butts and stuff, and you're holding our community back. And
really?
Yeah, people saying that, like, we perpetuate the most negative aspects of our community. And I'm like, well, you know what? Who's going to have the balls to go out there and say the kind of shit that drag queens say in defense of our community? Like, we may do all these things that are totally ridiculous, and we may, like, talk about sex and, base conversation topics and stuff and make it seem like that's all we care about. But also, as soon as the battle begins, who's at the front of the line?
Absolutely.
Oh, for sure.
And I've said this for years, too. Drag queens, our role in culture, whether it be, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, as a shaman or a witch doctor or a court jester, was to remind the culture to not take itself too seriously. And the way that we use humor, and we talk about coke or flippant about, politics or whatever, it is actually a political move. It's to remind people that none of this is important. You got to understand, too, that we were the little boys who didn't fit into any of that hierarchy, whether it was the straight hierarchy or the gay hierarchy. So our role was to make fun of it, poke fun at it, because we couldn't take it too seriously. If we took that hierarchy seriously, we would be devastated because we could never, ever fit in.
That makes so much more sense, because if you say just what you just said now, think about it. In the trans world, there's an agenda. They are doing what they're doing. There's an agenda. Even in the gay, just straight up homosexual agenda, there's, and I'm not saying it in a negative way. I'm saying,
I got it.
Yeah. But then in the drag world, there is no agenda because you're making fun of the agenda.
Exactly. We are making fun of the agenda. And that's why certain people who take themselves very seriously or who want to be seen by straight people as we're tax-paying people, we're regular people too. Those people don't get it. They're still caught up in that scene of trying to fit in. I never wanted to fit in. I don't want to fit in. I've seen it. I'd studied it. I'd rather boogie than fit in. Yes.
Well, heteronormativity is just so toxic for queer people, for straight people.
What word did you use? Heteronormativity.
Yeah. But because it's
It's
the
toxic
idea,
if you take it too seriously and the ideology of it.
Yeah, well, it's the idea that to be successful in this life, your life has to look a certain way.
Right.
And then the queer community has adopted it too, because now that we're able to get married and now that it's easier for us to adopt children, it's easier for us to now resemble the straight community. It's easier for us to live a heteronormative life. But it's like the idea that anyone's telling you how your life is supposed to look like, that's problematic. Just
Agreed.
at the beginning of the day,
Yeah.
there's no reason why you should like worry about what some designated idea of how your life should look. You know, that shouldn't dominate your life, because then you're missing out on
Yeah.
the small amount of time you have
Exactly.
on this
Yeah.
planet.
And the natural evolution and that journey that your life takes. You know, it's interesting how, and actually what you're describing is it's exactly what it is in Orwell's Animal Farm, how they have a revolution, and the pigs at one point say, "We will never stand on 2 feet." Well, they change that amendment later and say, "No, I think it's okay to fit into the status quo." But that's what happens to all these big organizations that start as with a great cause. I'm not going to name any names, but all of these, you know, they grow into these huge organizations, and they turn into the exact thing that they're fighting against.
You are correct. They lose the basis of what they started on.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's unfortunate, but, you know, but that's the role of drag or the court jester or any of the people who make fun of the status quo. We are a huge, important part of this. There's a movie with Joel McCrea called Sullivan's Travels. It's Preston Sturges, and it's about a big famous movie director in Hollywood. Veronica Lake is in it, and
Gorgeous.
It's in the 30s. Take place in the 30s, I believe. Yeah, during the Great Depression. And he's this big, huge comedy director. Think, I don't know, Apatow.
Judd Apatow.
Yes. And he decides, you know what I do is frivolous. I'm going to go out and see how the real humans live and see what it's like. He goes out there, and it is exactly it. It's horrible. He ends up in a chain gang, and once a month on Sunday, they show a movie. And it's drudgery. It's terrible. And they pan across the prisoners' faces as the movie screen lights up, and of course it's Steamboat Willie. And the faces they make, they become so happy. And he's looking around, realizing, I get it. What I do is really important. You know, all these people, you know, it's just serious things are great. That's great. But laughter and lightness has huge value. And if you haven't seen this movie, you should see it. Did I explain it right?
Yeah,
And he
yes,
realizes
realizes
that it's the lightness.
Yeah.
Hey, we've got Jinkx Monsoon. We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back after this.
Girl, you know, I just love this part of the show when we get to the Squarespace section of our program and we get to read, well, you get to read all of the emails from the kids who make their Squarespace.
Sidebar, before we get to the letter, we put a lot of heart and soul into our podcast. We live truths. We tell everybody. We try to live our better lives, help them. And what do they quote the most? Our Squarespace ads.
You really?
Our Squarespace ads get the most love on the Twitters.
Well, yeah, and you know why that is? Because we love Squarespace.
Yes.
Squarespace is a great
And
website.
because we're idiots.
And because we're idiots.
Yeah.
But listen, this is the 21st century. Ain't nobody going to have to be going to no webmaster to make the website, you know?
I have to call you what?
What? And I have to pay you what?
No.
No. That's not how it works over at squarespace.com/Ru.
No. And baby, I do have a letter. So we love all your letters. Keep them coming in about your Squarespace site, and we'll check them out. RuPaulPodcast@gmail.com is the email. This one says, Dear Ru and Michelle, thank you for creating our favorite podcast, which has joined us on long journeys and been listened to around our apartment by my girlfriend, writing partner, soulmate. Aw. It also brought us to Squarespace, which led us to create our website for our filmmaking called Organized Chaos Films. That's a great name. Organized with an S, which is the British spelling. OrganizedChaosFilms.com. I'm not the best at online stuff, so it being super easy to use meant that we could finally showcase our work professionally. So we can't thank you enough for that. It's also moved me towards my next filmmaking adventure in the world of drag. And that's from Mike and Amy.
That is lovely. I can't wait to see the film.
Me too.
I can't wait to see the website either. No, it's just that simple. And if
Yes.
you're a creative person, you really do need a place where other people can find your work.
Show it off.
Show it off. And also, you know, rather than, sending out, a business card, you could just tell people where your website is.
And you give out a business card. Cell phone numbers are so passé.
It's so tiny.
Passé, my website.
Totally passé.
And it's Squarespace.
Yeah.
We got so caught up in that.
It's simple. Just go to your website.
Yes. When you're ready to purchase a plan at squarespace.com, get 10% off with the offer code RU. That's squarespace.com, offer code RU.
We are back with Jinkx Monsoon, winner of season 5. My goodness, you people always ask me how I would do in a competition reality show.
How do you think you do on RuPaul's Drag Race?
I can tell you in a few words. I would win.
Yes! But that would be hard because I would win too. You better believe I'd be able to sew a gown in 2 seconds flat.
Well, it's the sewing, it's the diplomacy also. It's knowing how to compete.
Oh, there's a game to be played.
There is a game to be played. Now, of course, people. And let me just tell you one of my favorite moments from your season. I think maybe my favorite moment when I think back on it, because there's we have all these gifts of the show, is at one point you and I danced on the Soul Train line.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because when you dance, I love to dance. When you dance with someone and you have a language immediately, you have a language. You go, oh, I know what you're doing.
Yeah.
How about this?
Yeah.
And you go, oh, well, how about this?
Uh-huh.
And it was one of those, and because I've always loved to dance.
Me
It
gusta
is the
bailar.
thing that just. It's my favorite moment from that show.
Was it in the?
It was in a mini challenge.
Yeah,
Oh
mini
yeah.
challenge.
Oh, I remember. Was it the old lady one?
No,
Or
that was
No.
another
Jesus
season. That was
Lord.
It
similar.
was the Soul Train Challenge, and it was gearing up for. I won, and Coco won, and then we became team captains for the ballet challenge.
And I
gotcha.
wear a big afro.
Oh, okay.
in this. Yes, and
Now
a
I
big
remember.
orange
Yeah.
rust suit.
You wear everything orange. It's hard to remember.
I know,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, I can tell you, because I know you have eyes everywhere. You have eyes and ears everywhere. But those little tiny moments, any moment where one of us has that special little, just a momentary connection with you. And then you leave the room, and then it's just the competitors left behind. It's all like, did you see? Did you see that she danced with me? Rue and I danced together. I don't think Rue danced with you just now.
Well, a lot of times my fellow producers will say, you can see in your eyes that there are certain ones that I'm excited to talk to, and I have to go, okay, bring it down because I am the neutral. I have to play a certain role. But there, was always excited to talk to you because you know what? You're very smart and you're very aware. You're very present of what's happening and you're very wise. Now, you also, you talked about family stuff on the show. How has that panned out? I know that you were raised by your grandmother and that you were estranged from your biological mother.
No, I wasn't estranged from my biological mother, but we did. I mean, it was just a tumultuous relationship. And so the whole time that I lived with my mom, I also kind of lived with my grandma. I was like 50-50 back and forth. My mom had her own house, but we spent every day after school at my grandma's, and I would spend most weekends there. And then there was a point when it was just too tense between me and my mom, and I had to move out, and I moved in with my grandma. And I spent the rest of my high school years with my grandma. And it was a situation of my mom having kids too young, on her own, both of me, my brothers, we have 2 different fathers between the 3 of us.
Oh, that sounds like math.
And
Wait a minute. Okay.
The brothers.
How many brothers are there?
I've got 2 younger brothers.
Yeah.
And a younger sister. My younger sister was raised with my stepmom. Me and my brothers were raised together. The middle one has the same dad as me. The youngest one has a different father. And neither fathers were present. So it was my mom doing it on her own, doing it too young. And just, my mom didn't take enough time to take care of herself to then also be responsible for. And it was kind of like, even though there was so much tension between us and stuff, nothing was ever talked about in the open. Like, nothing was ever just spoken plainly. It was all just kind of like we tiptoed around all these issues. That was my whole family. Like, my family was built on family secrets, basically. So it was like one person might know what's going on and we're keeping it from another person. And then this person knows something and the rest of the family can't know, you know? So it was stuff like that my whole life. And Drag Race, it just kind of came out all in the open for the first time ever, where it was like there was no hiding behind any language. It was just like my mom dealt with alcoholism. It caused a huge upset for my formative years. But like my mom literally, since that episode of Drag Race aired, has just been on this path of trying to kind of, you know, just trying to change her story and change her relationship with me and my brothers and stuff. And that's not to say my mom hasn't worked hard her whole life. She put herself through trade school so that she could get a job as a paralegal to be able to have enough money to raise her kids. But that also put more strain on her, which also just exacerbated the issues she was dealing with. So, but nowadays, you know, my family's super close. We were really disparate when I went on Drag Race. Like, almost no one in my family was talking to each other. So I didn't even feel like I had that unified family that I was raised with.
You felt alone. Like, to me, do you remember when I went in for you in the workroom and I went to talk to them? And I wasn't getting the Jinkx Monsoon thing at all. It wasn't that far in. And then I remember coming back and telling you, sitting next to you, and I went, I get it now. After I got to have one-on-one time with her, which they didn't show, and I found that was interesting. Remember, you were the only one that they didn't show our talk.
And it's because I think we
saw
were
the connection
along too well.
It was just it was first time I talked to you, because I don't get to meet you, talk to you, know you, anything.
Yeah.
But it was when I came out and I went, oh, I get it now. Because you do get to spend, obviously it's your show, you get to spend the time with them. And on the main stage, there was charmingness, but I wasn't getting the full story. And then when I talked to her, I must only talk to you for 5 minutes, and it made complete sense, all of it. And now adding this backstory, which, you know, we only got a little piece of on the show, it makes even more sense because you were basically alone besides your really good friends, you know, your chosen.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really find my tribe until high school. I mean, I had a good time in middle school. I went to an arts magnet middle school, so it was more open-minded kids that I was going to school with, more open-minded teachers. Elementary school was just hell on earth for me. I mean, I have never fit in as a boy. Like, I have been effeminate my entire life. And to put any kind of nature versus nurture stuff to shame, like my younger brother is the butchest boy in the world, and we were both just raised by a tribe of women. It was just in my nature, and it's always been a part of my nature. My family very much let me express that, but they also forewarned me that, like, even though you can do this at home, you can wear dresses and you can play with your Barbies at home, to do that in the outside world is going to be very dangerous, you know? So I was always raised, even though I was encouraged to be myself, I was also raised with this idea that, like, to be myself in public and to be myself around other people is shameful and dangerous, you know? And that wasn't their intention, but that's, you know, kind of how it all boils down. So I was very bad at trying to be a typical boy, and I really tried, and in my mind, I really thought I was doing it, but I look back, I'm like, how many other 7-year-olds do you know wearing a beret? You know? Like...
Oh my God! I'm just imagining you as a little boy, and I'm thinking, oh God, I would love to have a little effeminate boy. I would just love it.
I would go to school and I'd be quoting "Death Becomes Her"
at
age 8.
God. Now morning?
Exactly.
Right.
Now tell me this: when did the narcolepsy develop?
That was sophomore or junior year of high school.
Wait a minute, sophomore or junior year? That's 11th grade.
10th or 11th.
So I must have been about like 14 or 15.
Yeah.
And it's around puberty that if you have the chemical imbalance which allows you to have narcolepsy, normally around puberty or any time where you could like have exacerbated That's
an amalgamation.
Yes. Heightened
stress, heightened emotion. So, it was just like all of a sudden I could not stay awake. I couldn't go an entire day without taking a nap.
Yeah.
And so I had my ways of taking naps during school. Like I was in choir class and there was like 70 kids in this choir class. We were a huge, huge choir. Yeah. And I would find ways to sneak off behind the little, behind
the alto section.
Yeah. And I would just sleep for like 20 minutes of the class on block days or something where we'd have a 2-hour class. Yeah.
How does one know?
I had to see a doctor, and then I saw a sleep specialist when I was 19. And it's all about, they have to monitor your brain while you're sleeping, because what causes the chronic fatigue is that when you go to sleep, you never stop dreaming. And you never fall into that deepest cycle of sleep where you're just completely blank and you're just there recuperating. So you could sleep for 8 hours, but your mind stays active the whole time. And that's why you wake up and you feel tired still. Right. I can wake up from 10 hours of sleep and I feel exhausted.
Still today?
Yeah, I mean, the symptoms have definitely decreased now that I live a little bit more of a life of leisure. You know, I also when I'm working, I get to sleep all day, wake up when it's time to get ready for drag, and I just store up all my energy. And I put it all out there on stage. I expel every last ounce of energy doing my job.
As you said that, I would imagine you doing the Yma Sumac number. That, wow, wow, wow. That's the first thought when you said that. That's the first thing that came to my mind.
She does. We were on tour. We did the Snatch Game, and I always know there's two that I can always count on to give 120%, and it's her and Sharon. Yeah. So I know that those are the two that I can go to. There's the other girls are great too, but those two are giving every ounce of soul left in their bodies. And she has done everything. And even when it's not working, when Betty Davis or whatever, or Dietrich and people weren't getting it, she was still giving completely. When she does Liza, I think she almost broke her ankle one night, flopping herself doing it. Remember that night when you fell? Yeah. So just the full amount. She is a true theater kid in that aspect.
Well, and our audiences are so young these days, and those touring shows we do are generally all ages, or maybe like 13 plus or something.
So they don't know who Liza is.
They don't know who Liza. They have a better chance with Liza, but like Betty Davis, no one knew that. So I was so committed to doing Betty Davis that I had to just find a way to make her funny to anyone who doesn't even know
she just made fun of me.
Is. So I just made fun of Michelle the whole time as Betty Davis. And it's kind of how I got away.
Are a slut.
Yeah.
Well, when you talk,
when you go to the makeup counter, they beat a face with whatever they put on you.
You taught a whole generation about Little Edie.
Yeah, and I mean, I kind of used the same mentality with that. Like, what's the funniest things about her that you don't have to know who she is, and you don't have to have followed her your whole life to find that very entertaining. Because the first time I watched Grey Gardens, I didn't know the whole backstory. I knew vaguely, the backstory. I was about 19 the first time I saw it. And I remember just being like, this is insane, and I love it so much.
Did a drag mother or a gay mentor teach you about that?
It was another queen that I worked with. And what happened is the musical had just come out.
With Ebersol.
Christine Ebersol.
Yeah.
And she was like, you have to do Little Edie from this musical, because I was the Broadway queen, and I always sang songs live and did Broadway numbers and stuff at these shows. And she showed me the video of the revolutionary costume, and I had no context for it. All I knew is that Christine Ebersol was doing something amazing. And so first I got into the musical. Then because I got into the soundtrack of the musical, I had to watch the movie. Then I watched the Drew Barrymore film.
So you got into the musical first?
I got into the musical first, but I didn't get to see the musical. I just listened to the soundtrack.
Which isn't that great.
I love the soundtrack.
You do? I think it's okay. It doesn't suck.
They changed I listened to the off-Broadway soundtrack, which I actually like better than the Broadway soundtrack.
Who's in the off-Broadway?
It was still Christine Ebersol and Mary Louise Wilson. But I think they took everyone from off-Broadway to Broadway except for the girl playing Little Edie in young Little Edie.
Right.
Yeah.
Baby Little Edie.
Baby Little Edie.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you mentioned that did you win that Snatch Game doing Little Edie?
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned getting the essence of someone for Snatch Game. How do you describe that to someone? Because either you get Snatch Game or you don't. Now, for those of you who don't know, we do a takeoff on TV's Match Game. We call it Snatch Game, where the girls have to pick a celebrity and then impersonate them and then riff with me to say something funny. You know, what's the key to that?
That's the riffing. I think that's because you can memorize every quote. I mean, we saw Alyssa Edwards memorize every Joan Crawford quote and just rattle them off rapid fire in succession
and then blew her load.
With zero context and zero rationale. And that works, but what really...
It only works if you're Alyssa, honestly.
But what really sets you apart in Snatch Game is the ability to improv as that character.
Yeah.
And to make Rue laugh.
Yeah. And so I think, you know, the downfall is when queens just do, oh, who can I look like?
Right.
Or who can I sound like? But you also have to love the person so much. You have to love the person so much that you know maybe like you have ideas of how they would handle this situation.
Yes.
And they have to become them.
You have to become them, but then you also have to not love them so much that you can't take the piss out of them.
Exactly.
You know, because then the girls who revere the queen that they're impersonating too much, then there's nothing funny because they're scared of, what if Beyonce sees this and she thinks that I don't like her?
And really choosing the right one that has... Listen, Beyonce is amazing. She's an amazing performer. But when she speaks, she's just a regular girl.
Yeah.
How are you going to take the piss out of her?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Certain people like that. Like when Detox did Kesha, it was like...
Well, yeah. And I would just say, I mean, watch SNL because... It's all about finding that one thing that you can exploit and you can mine and mine and mine. And like, if you can find one funny thing about a person,
yes,
you can carry a whole scene doing that person.
But it's got to be obvious because otherwise people aren't going to get it.
No.
And I think the best characters for Snatch Game, you got to find someone who has a very distinct voice.
Yeah.
Because like, how could I impersonate Meryl, you know, unless I impersonated one of her characters?
Yes,
right.
Exactly.
Meryl has a very clear voice and a clear speaking voice, and I bet I could find something funny about her, but it's going to be so much harder than if I take like Jennifer Tilly and I'm like, oh, hi, Rue. I'm so happy to be here.
But it was perfect, like Adora Delano did with Anna Nicole Smith.
Yes,
because she could have gone the wrong way.
She could have done a whole monologue as Anna.
That's true. Oh my God,
she was so
true.
amazing.
True.
It was like she was channeling her that
day.
Was.
Yeah. Well, Jinkxie, you are just fabulous. So happy that you've got to do our podcast, and I'm sure there's so many great successes ahead of you because you're a true talent. And
this is the most time we've ever spent in one room together.
Is it really? How about
I'll
that?
Never forget it.
Well,
she's had too much time with me.
Well, we'll have to have you back on the podcast. You're really fun to talk to.
I'm going to show Rue. Since it's visual, I'll wait till the podcast is done.
Okay. All right. Well, and so where can people find you? Is there a JinkxMonsoon.com? Is there an album you want to talk about?
There's JinkxMonsoon.com.
What about
the
Ginger
spell your
Snapped?
Jinkx?
It's Jinkx, and you have to use the K because I paid extra for it.
Oh, okay.
And so JinkxMonsoon.com. The Ginger Snapped is my new album, which will be coming out. We hope to have the first couple singles coming out.
That title.
Thank you. Late May, early June. That's when the singles will be coming out. Hopefully by the end of June or beginning of July, the album will be out. We raised $20,000 on Kickstarter.
Oh, boy.
I put all of my own money into the studio work and all that stuff, but we raised the money to do the post-production stuff because I really want this to be very special. It's a 90s garage band throwback album.
Wow.
It's a huge departure from my last album, which was all cabaret and show tunes inspired. But this one's more Seattle grungy, you know.
Oh, I can't wait
It's
to
the
hear
music
that.
you wouldn't have expected
That's
me
great.
to do.
Great.
The Ginger Snapped.
The Ginger Snapped. And then I'll be in Provincetown this summer, and I'll be touring the UK with Peaches Christ in the fall. And I think it's about to be announced, but we are bringing back the Vaudevillians again for a UK tour.
The original?
The original,
Okay.
yeah. We did it in London last year to huge success, so now we're taking it on the road through the UK, and I'm very excited about that.
I love it. Well, great success with that, and can't wait to see it all. And Michelle Visage.
My darling.
Darling, darling, darling. Until next time.
Yes.
Bye.
Can I get an amen? Can I get an amen? If you
love yourself, how in the hell you gonna love somebody else? Can I get an amen?
And don't forget to subscribe on iTunes.
If you can't love yourself, how in the hell you gonna love somebody else? Amen.